Hey, Ray and Axel. It's Grandma. I'm here to read you chapter 5 of the book Dog Diaries, a middle school story by James Patterson. Written from the dog's point of view. I think it's a pretty good story so far. Okay, chapter 5. A quick history of us. These guys and I have been through a whole lot together. We met all the way back in our days at the Hills Village dog shelter. It was the 6 of us in one pen for what seemed like forever. On those long days when at the bleakest and bowl of a meaty giblet seemed a lifetime away, we always took care of each other, and it was in that horrible place that we swore, if we ever escape, we'll always watch out for our pack. Then one day, a kind-faced lady with more treats in her pockets than we could have ever imagined in our wildest dream came and adopted Odin and Diego. They'd been together since they were pups, and somehow had still not figured out they weren't brothers. But hey, they believed it, and no one had the heart to tell them that there wasn't much of a family resemblance. Sure enough, once Odin and Diego were saved, one by one, all my cellmates were too. Lola was next, followed by Genghis, then Betty, until I was the only loser left in that miserable prison. I remember crying myself to sleep at night, thinking nobody would ever want me, and I'd never see any of my friends again. It was horrible. See, they're all in the kennel together. Fast forward to 6 months later. I was feeling about as gloomy and dejected as one mutt could be. So you can imagine my shock and delight when Mom Lady came to pick me up. Finally, I remember thinking to myself, finally, my luck has changed. I've never been so happy. I thought my life couldn't possibly get any better until the day Ruff brought me to the park. I was a little nervous. I hadn't been around this many dogs before without metal bars separating us, and seeing so many of them bounding about miss my furry friends so much it hurt my heart. Anyway, to cut a long story short, Ruff and I had only just made it out onto the playing field for a game of fetch when a wiry chihuahua trotted across my path. My doggy eyes nearly jumped out of my head with surprise. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. All the hairs on the back of my neck prickled on one end as Diego froze in his tracks. He sniffed the air, spun around in my direction. For a second, we both just stared until, "Mi amigo," he barked. He practically flew at my face and swung on my left ear. Then we rolled around in the grass, yipping and nipping at each other. "Mi amigo," he kept yelping at his play bite me on the snout. My old friend returned. My tail was switching from side to side so fast I nearly batted the poor little guy across the field like a four-legged baseball. Next thing I knew, Diego arched his spine, lifted his head, and howled. Come another voice from the other side of the field. "He's back!" a third voice wailed from the fountains. And that was that. I turned around slowly to see my best pooch pals running toward me from a different direction. Needless to say, it was a good day. There's not a whole lot I can say that properly describes just how great these guys are. Odin and Diego are endlessly funny. You should see it when Diego scampers beneath something low like a trash can or a bench, and Odin can't figure out why he's not able to make it under like his brother. Lola lives to troll in mud. She's more hippopotamus than dog, I think, a French bull hippo. Genghis loves to run between your legs and steal the tennis ball you were just playing with right out from underneath your nose. And Betty is a master canine comedy. She really is. Sometimes I wish Ruff spoke doggish. I find it easy to understand people-ish and what my pet has to say, but humans just aren't as smart as dogs, sadly. If Ruff could understand Betty, then he'd be rolling in the grass with us, laughing his 2 legs up. Which kind of dog would keep a vampire as a pet? A bloodhound. What do you call a magical dog? A Labrador. Cadabra. Did you hear the cat won the dog show? It was a catastrophe. A Scotty ran into a monster. He was terrified. I'd be rolling around on the ground laughing too. 11:45 a.m. This is a disaster. Oh no, my person pal. There has been a terrible incident. It was so bad, I think I might have gotten Ruff and me into more trouble than we've ever been in before. My heart was racing so much I can hardly speak. I think I might need to lie down. No, come on, Junior. You can do this. Well, my furless friend, we were just hanging around the park, having an amazing time when I saw it. I caught a flash of gray in black as something small and furry ran between the trash cans and the jungle gym. My ears perked up, and my super sniffalicious nose caught the garbagey whiff of a wreck. That was it. I couldn't help myself. Before Ruff could stop me, I bolted across the playing field, barking my extra barkiest bark that I could just say for raccoons. I don't know what it is about them that drive me so crazy. Just seeing their stripy tails sends me into a frenzy. Chasing and barking at them is one of my favorite hobbies in the world. It just was so much fun. I suppose if I had to only run after it and bark, things would have been so bad. The problem is, when a dog sees another dog racing across the open grass, they just have to follow. It's irresistible. In no time, I was pelting across the park with every single dog who was there today, all following me. Of course, that doesn't sound too bad, I know. So, what if all the dogs ran over the jungle gym? Not a big deal, right? Well, it didn't quite end there. No, a St. Bernard named Tallulah, who joined in the chase, had been tied to a drinking fountain outside the public restrooms. In all excitement of my little scene, she pulled the thing off the wall, sending a huge arc of water crashing into some unexpected gramoos on a bench opposite. Oops, that'd be like Gigi. Another dog had his leash knotted to the stroller his pet human was pushing, and before she knew what was happening, the lady was screaming at the top of her lungs as the baby was hurtling back across the park, towed by an overexcited Akita named Dwayne. Dwayne? Who names a dog Dwayne? It was canine carnage. Picnics were trampled. Toddlers were toppled. And the peace of the park was most definitely shattered. Oh, no. That's what happens when you get all the dogs running after a raccoon. Ugh. To top things off, as we all clattered about the jungle gym looking for the oh, you know what I'm trying to say. A stern-looking woman in a green uniform marched in the middle of the chaos and lunged at me. I ducked under her outstretched arm, then bolted between her legs before she could gather her hands on my collar. Who did she think she was, trying to stop my raccoon chase? Come here, she bellowed at me, spinning around to make a second grab. Now, everything got even more wild. If there's one thing that makes dogs run wild more than when they're chasing something, is in when they're being chased. Bad dog, the woman yelled, driving out the path of the high-speed stroller as it caneered behind Dwayne. Bad dog. What? Was she talking to me? I was just doing some very important barking. What's wrong with that? Before I knew it, the woman was in speeding pursuit. She was screaming and sweating, and I'm not ashamed to admit it, but I started to panic. Get back here. The angry lady pulled a whistle from her pocket and blew it. Who owns this dog? I'm not entirely sure what happened next. My pooch instincts kicked into gear, and all I could think about was getting away from that strange human who called me a bad dog. Those two are the monotonous words worse than swearing. Bad dog means no treats. It means being shut out in the yard or sent to your bed without dinner. Those two words mean you'll eventually wind up back in the Hills Village dog shelter. Suddenly, in all the howling, yelling, and grabbing, I heard Russ's voice. He was calling my name, which was like a tiny explosion of happiness in my heart. But I couldn't stop now. The angry whistle lady had nearly caught up with me, and I wasn't about to let myself be grabbed by her. So, I'm sure you're wondering what happened in the end. Did I find the raccoon? Did the crazy woman catch me and throw me in a pooch prison to spend the rest of my days locked away until there was nothing left of a cage except a pile of bones? Brace yourself, my furless friends. What I'm about to tell you is worse than all of those things. So much worse. If you had a tail, the next part of my diary would make you curly with shock. Picture it. There's chaos. All of us dogs were barking. Our raccoon warnings and scrabbling about the place, and the humans were yelling at their dog owners in return. And right in the middle of all of this was a whistling Wilma, swatting this way and that. My heart was beating faster and faster until silence. It took a moment for me to even notice that everyone, four-legged and two-legged alike, had just stopped in their tracks and was staring over at the swing set. Junior, what have you done? It was Russ's voice coming from a little way off behind me. I spun around and said, I couldn't help but laughing. It was all of our twisting and turning. The crazy whistle lady had gotten herself knotted up in the ropes of the swing and was dangling like an enormous ball of human yarn just above the ground. Now that is funny. I'd be laughing too. Really, I would. What did she expect? No one can outrun Junior Tron 5000. Patooey, she spat the whistle out of her mouth and glared at the crowd of people that gathered. Get me down from here. Ma'am, I'm so sorry, Russ said. He darted over to the swings and started trying to untwist the red-faced woman. I mean it, she snapped at Ruff as she pulled a piece of rope that was looped around her belly. Untangle me. Yes, ma'am. Now! My human pet gave one last almighty yank on the tattered end of the swing rope, and the crazy lady flopped onto the ground with a very winded oof. Nobody made a sound. I watched nervously as she flapped about on her side before stumbling to her feet. You, the woman hissed, almost pressing her nose against Russ. Are you the owner of this unruly mongrel? She jabbed the finger in my direction without moving her eyes away from the pet human. Mongrel? Who is she calling a mongrel? I'm the best part of the tons of different canine breeds all rolled into one. I'm a canine cocktail. Yes, he's my dog, Ruff said. Look, I'm sorry. Oh, save your I'm sorry's for somebody else. That mutt is practically wild. Look at the chaos he has caused. She gestured her arm around the park, as it was the first time I noticed the mess we'd all made. Well, I made. Do you know what I mean? No. Do you know who I am? No. Nope, I barked at, but she didn't seem to understand me. The lady took a small card from her pouch in her belt and handed it to Ruff. Her card said, the perfect pooch, obedient dogs training. That's who she was. She was a dog trainer. My name is Lona Strickler. Both my pets and I jolted with surprise. I knew that human surname. It was the same as the monster who bullied her way into Hills Village Middle School. Ida Stricker, Queen of Detention. That's what Ruff used to call her. He grumbled to me about the grossy old lady all the time. Without realizing, I understood every word he was saying. Stricker, Ruff stammered. Yes, like Ida Stricker. That's Principal Stricker to you, young man. But yes, Ida Stricker is my aunt. Ruff opened his mouth to speak, then closed it, then opened it. I never seen my pet human looking so confused and stressed in my life. Anyway, the lady said, I run the obedience classes here at the Hills Village Park. I don't think I've ever seen a dog that needs them more. No, you don't understand, Ruff tried to explain, but Cranky Pants Stricker grunted. Wrong. Is it you who doesn't understand? She turned and glared at me for the first time, and before I could stop myself, a low growl rumbled from my throat. This creature is a nuisance, a blight, an embarrassment to the park. If you do not enroll yourself and your dog in my intensive best behavior course immediately, I'll be forced to report him to the Hills Village Dog Shelter and have him taken away. No! I wouldn't want that either. That'd be just too, Okay, stay tuned for chapter 6. All right, you guys, good night. I love you both. Love you. Excellent, Ray. I miss you. Love, Grandma.